For decades, two American institutions have operated in the shadows, shaping global events from behind the scenes. The U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and the National Endowment for Democracy, NED. Ostensibly, they're about promoting development and democratic values. But critics, both foreign and increasingly domestic, paint a very different picture. One of waste, corruption, and arguably destabilizing interference in the sovereign affairs of other nations. This perception is fueled by concerns about violations of national sovereignty, leading to resentment and backlash. Now, a seismic shift is underway. A powerful tech executive, acting as a consultant for government efficiency, is leading a charge to defund and potentially dismantle these organizations. This isn't just bureaucratic reshuffling, it's a potential revolution in American foreign policy with ramifications that could reshape global power dynamics for decades to come. What's driving this dramatic change? It's a combination of factors: perceived inefficiency and waste, a push for non-interventionism, and concerns about ideological bias within the NED, which some claim has become a stronghold for the extreme left wing. And what are the potential consequences, both intended and unintended? To understand the current controversy, we need to go back to the Cold War. The National Endowment for Democracy, or NED, was established in 1983 during the Reagan administration. The official line: to strengthen democratic institutions around the world. But the context is crucial. This was a time of intense rivalry with the Soviet Union, and the CIA was under intense scrutiny following a series of scandals revealed in the 1970s. The Church Committee, the Pike Committee, the Rockefeller Commission all exposed covert operations. The NED effectively became a public face for operations that the CIA could no longer easily pursue after facing intense scrutiny. Frequently labeled a second CIA or a Trojan horse for American interventionism, the NED received its funding via congressional appropriations. These funds were channeled through the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, with a history stretching back to the Kennedy administration, manages a wide range of development and humanitarian aid initiatives, boasting an annual budget of over $40 billion. In contrast, the NED's budget is significantly smaller, at around $315 million annually. However, its operations frequently intersect with and utilize USAID's substantial resources, making this broad influence a central point of debate. Over the years, the NED has provided funding to a wide range of organizations: pro-democracy movements, independent media outlets, labor unions, and human rights groups, particularly in countries with authoritarian governments. On paper, it sounds noble, but critics, particularly in China and Russia, view the NED as little more than a tool for political interference, actively working to undermine their governments. They point to events like the 2019 Hong Kong protests, where the NED provided significant financial and logistical support to pro-democracy activists, including funding opposition movements, providing guidance, cultivating political leaders, meddling in elections, directing Hong Kong public opinion, and aiding democracy groups in building international networks. As clear evidence of meddling, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has even released detailed reports outlining what it sees as the NED's subversive activities. Russia similarly designated the NED as an undesirable organization back in 2015. This isn't just rhetoric, it reflects a deep-seated suspicion of American intentions, rooted in decades of Cold War-era rivalry. Both China and Russia view curtailing the NED's activities as positive, given their long-held belief that it's a tool of American interference. The core of the current challenge to the NED and USAID isn't just about geopolitical rivalry, it's about effectiveness and accountability. The tech executive leading this charge, who maintains he is merely an advisor, not a decision-maker to help avoid conflict with Congress, poses a fundamental question. how much democracy has the NED actually achieved? He, along with President Trump, views these organizations as wasteful, corrupt, and ineffective. He points to examples like Libya, where the color revolution that toppled Gaddafi, with significant Western support, has left the country mired in a decade-long civil war. Or Ukraine, where despite massive U.S. investment, over $5 billion acknowledged by U.S. officials, including Victoria Nuland's presence at key events, and repeated interventions by the NED and other Western organizations, including $65 million to Ukrainian opposition groups in 2004 and another $30 million from 2007 to 2015. The country remains plagued by corruption, ranking among the worst in Europe. The 2014 coup that ousted a pro-Russian leader and installed a pro-Western government, heavily supported by the NED and the US, is seen as a major factor in the ongoing conflict. These aren't isolated incidents. Critics argue that the NED's involvement, linked to several color revolutions, including those in Yugoslavia, 2000, Georgia, 2003, Ukraine, 2004, and Kyrgyzstan, 2005, has often exacerbated instability rather than fostering genuine democratic development. Beyond the geopolitical concerns, there are serious allegations of financial mismanagement and lack of transparency. The argument is that both USAID and the NED have become conduits for funneling money to favored political groups, particularly those aligned with left-leaning ideologies with little oversight. One cited example involves a relatively small $61,000 grant to a Georgian news organization, ostensibly to promote fair reporting during a parliamentary election. Critics argue this may have supported political party activities backed by the US. The lack of clarity about how this money was actually used raises red flags, contributing to the perception of the NED and USAID as, according to some, money laundering operations for clandestine activities. If these organizations are significantly defunded or even dismantled, what happens next? The immediate impact would be felt by the numerous NGOs, media outlets, and political groups that rely on their funding. This could cripple international NGOs and independent media outlets. Supporters argue this would weaken America's soft power and create a vacuum that could be filled by rivals like China, potentially undermining democratic values and human rights. But the broader implications are even more profound. This move signals a potential shift towards a more isolationist, less interventionist American foreign policy, a key tenet of the push to defund. The argument is that the US should focus on its own domestic problems and avoid costly and often counterproductive foreign entanglements. This resonates with a significant segment of the American public, weary of endless wars and frustrated with the perceived failures of nation-building efforts. This sentiment is reflected in approval ratings. Musk's Government Efficiency Department has a 60% approval rating, and President Trump has a 53% approval rating. However, the transition won't be smooth. Many within the U.S. foreign policy establishment, and particularly within the Democratic Party, see these organizations as vital tools for promoting American values and interests abroad. American left-leaning figures and organizations have criticized the moves, viewing them as detrimental to American interests and global democracy. They argue that abandoning them would cede influence to authoritarian regimes and undermine the global struggle for democracy. The Trump administration and Musk refute this by simply asking, what has been achieved and at what cost? The battle over the future of USAID and the NED is more than just a budgetary dispute. It's a proxy war for the very soul of American foreign policy. It reflects a fundamental disagreement about America's role in the world. Should the U.S. continue to actively promote democracy and intervene in the affairs of other nations, or should it adopt a more restrained, inward-looking approach? The outcome of this struggle will have profound consequences, not just for the United States, but for the entire global order. The future of American foreign engagement is being decided, and the world is watching.